Otherwise, anti-gun Americans celebrate gun use against tyrannical governments in all other parts of the world. CBS even just aired a new 60-minute special about armed resistance fighters in Ukraine. Back on home soil, they claim that guns would have no use here because our military weapon is so advanced. They seem to forget the plethora of historical examples that would disagree with them. And now we can add to that pile a bunch of farmers in the jungle using 3D printed guns to seize rocket launchers and armored vehicles from the military. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As usual, today's video is brought to you all with the help of Blackout Coffee Company. They are my go-to choice for coffee that also supports the Second Amendment, as some of their partner roasts donate to some of your favorite gun rights groups directly. Blackout is a small batch roaster down in sunny Florida, not to be confused with Black Rifle. Have to say that every few videos. Since their founding, they have backed the Second Amendment, traditional values, and veterans, as well as channels like mine. So to help support the channel and support Blackout, go to blackoutcoffee.com/libertydoll. So do you all remember the 3D printed toy guns in Australia that just caused so many problems? I just did a story on it a while ago, and here it is in case you missed it. Australia would crap their pants over this. As I said in the intro, this is a story with profound implications for unarmed civilians everywhere. Surprisingly, this story has been chugging along since February 1st, 2021, but I only recently heard about it when a fairly new development arose and one of my viewers notified me of it. So thank you. As it's happening in the jungle all the way on the other side of the world, there's not a lot of information reaching traditional US news sources, so this one took a lot of digging. Thank you, Reddit. But I think it deserves some time in the spotlight. You see, back in 2021, the Myanmar military squashed a pro-democratic election and took power for themselves. It only took a short while before the atrocities and abuses came to light and the people rose up to try to take their country back. But that is, of course, difficult to do when the citizenry isn't allowed firearms. So, in the well-documented tradition of resistance fighters in World War II airdropping single-use homemade pistols behind enemy lines, the Burmese people started making their very own firearms, although these were many times better and much more useful. Okay, let me just back up a bit and set this up properly. First of all, if you don't know, Myanmar, formerly Burma, is on the Indian Ocean, sandwiched between India, China, Laos, and Thailand. It is right on the Tropic of Cancer and is a heavily forested part of the world. Think of every Vietnam movie you've ever seen, and you're in the right ballpark. They also have a long history of infighting ever since they gained independence from Britain, with lots of military coups all the time, basically. Like I said, the military had yet another violent takeover a couple years ago, and the people have been struggling ever since. Murders and protesters just disappearing in the night have been a staple of their existence for more than 2 years, and the government has gone as far as burning innocent people alive to try and discourage rebellion. This is some serious business. As a fairly poor nation, the people have long since turned to 3D printed parts to replace all manner of things like broken agricultural equipment and other parts as a cost-effective way to aid them. This has been pretty well documented since at least 2016. After all, the entire point of 3D printed anything is to make it accessible to all people, and in Myanmar it is definitely serving that purpose, and it has set the stage for a real chance to recover their nation and defend themselves. Sometime around Christmas of 2021, the civilian population had had enough, formed the People's Defense Force, or PDF, and some enterprising people began mass-producing a 3D printed gun called the FGC-9. The letters stand for F-word I can't say on YouTube, Gun Control 9mm, and it is the first of its kind that can be assembled without any regulated parts, and is a carbine specifically designed for ease of assembly. Even the ammo can be assembled without any regulated parts. The main designer, who went by J. Stark 1809, said that he intended for the gun to be a means for people to take their self-defense into their own hands in an increasingly dystopian world. He later died mysteriously only a couple of days after a German police raid. The official cause of death was a heart attack, though some people question that as he was only 28. He was well known for saying that he believed all people had the right to bear arms, especially against a tyrannical government. So that might have had something to do with his death. Back in Myanmar, the people began training with this surprisingly effective carbine, and the rebel forces suddenly started having a real effect. Like the US, the military in control of Myanmar has tanks, artillery, rockets, and fighter jets. And yet, the guerrilla fighters have used their 3D printed guns to seize better weapons, some of those rockets, and even armored vehicles to aid them. Well, that's just the Schrodinger's gun right there. They've figured out how to mass produce the FGC-9 and use it to train new fighters who don't have any prior experience with firearms. This video here is one of the few to show one of these 3D printed guns in action. The rebel fighters attacked an army boat convoy, sunk one of the boats, and were able to seize better weapons. The PDF has also been able to collaborate with the 3D printing community, which is largely US-based, for help and improvements. And this is the first time that 3D printed guns have been used in a large-scale conflict. All in all, it's pretty extraordinary and is the exact spirit of the 3D printed gun movement and the Second Amendment. Despite what our government and some politicians would have you believe, producing firearms in your own home has a long-standing tradition in the world. For centuries, people have made their own knives, spears, bows, swords, and axes. Once firearms came into existence, people began making those as well. It was common for American citizens to make firearms in their own workshops when the English government began denying citizens' rights. But that pales in comparison to the organized airdrops during World War II of homemade Liberator pistols behind enemy lines to aid them in causing chaos to the occupying Nazi forces. Liberator pistols were intended to be used in ambush of German soldiers so they could then have the much better weapons they took from the soldiers. The FGC-9 printed guns are an order of magnitude better than the old single-shot, single-use World War II Liberators, but are still meant to be used to acquire the much deadlier military weapons. And from all accounts, that strategy is working. In short, Myanmar is a prime example of why governments want to take guns, make them illegal, and deny people the right and ability to make and own firearms. I mean, how else is a totalitarian government going to dominate and rule its people if they have the means to defend themselves? Fear and domination only work on those that are convinced it's for their own good and are too afraid to stand up for themselves. So hats off to you, J. Stark 1809, and the people of Burma. That's it for this video, guys. Hopefully you learned something and found this interesting. I think it's absolutely fascinating, and the minute I heard about it, I knew that it had to be a video. It kind of goes along with the history videos I've been doing, but is a modern-day conflict happening in real time with huge implications for modern-day gun control, and for the right to bear arms in general. Anyways, you guys know the drill for all of the algorithm things. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are new here. Ring that notification bell because otherwise you might never know when I make videos. I still get people that message me every now and then and say, well, gee, you haven't been on my feed for 6 months. It's like, well, I have been putting out 3 videos a week for that 6 months, so I don't know, check your subscriptions, check your notifications. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. As always, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and of course, happy shooting.